Our top focus this hour, 3,000 Russian troops conducted live fire exercises in western Russia on Tuesday, including areas close to Ukraine. This is according to reports filed by Interfax news agency. The announcement of the drills came a day after Russia and the United States held talks on Moscow's security proposals in Geneva. The meeting did not reach a breakthrough. Interfax quoted the Western Military District saying exercises will take place in Smolensk region near the Belarusian border and in the Voronezh, Belgorod, Bryansk regions closer to Ukraine. It also said that 300 units of military hardware would be involved. These exercises aimed at practicing firing from armored vehicles and firearms, organizing marches during active enemy sabotage, reconnaissance activity and equipping strongholds.
In recent months, they have done so in a manner that was clearly not an attempt to be furtive or stealthy. It's hard to be stealthy when you're moving 100,000 forces along in internationally recognized borders. That underscores and undergirds our concern. And the fact that this was done and is being done in an effort to intimidate and an effort to coerce.
Now, Russia is all set to lay out security demands today. The recent talks between the United States and Russia showed that the two sides have some major differences to bridge. NATO diplomats say the Western alliance is ready to negotiate with Moscow on the military drills. They aim to avoid accidental clashes that could spark conflict. However, NATO allies also say that some of the demands put forward by Russia in December last year are just unacceptable. This includes call to scale back alliance's activity and promising not to take in new members. Meanwhile, the United States and Ukraine say they remain united in seeking to defuse standoff with Moscow through diplomacy. Dmytro Kuleba spoke with Secretary of State Antony Blinken. He said that the two nations are working closely to deter Russian aggression. Russia has made the West nervous by stationing troops near Ukraine. The country has also demanded Washington to never let Ukraine join NATO or expand military alliance eastward. Now, this is a request that the United States refuses to accept. Washington says Moscow has stationed as many as 100,000 troops. The United States has urged Russia to reverse the military buildup. The West fears that Russia is planning a new invasion against Ukraine. However, Moscow says that it has no intention of launching an attack and that it has every right to move its soldiers around within its own territory. And for more updates on this, our correspondent Julia Chapman is joining us live from Moscow. Julia, thank you so much for joining us. My first question to you. Reports of live fire exercises in western Russia. As you know, this comes ahead of the NATO-Russia meet and follows the high-level talks between Moscow and Washington. What can you tell us about the situation on ground currently?
Well, as we know, there are some 3,000 Russian troops involved in this particular set of exercises and some 300 pieces of military hardware. Most of them are focused near Belarus and Ukraine in the southwestern military district of Russia. That's all the detail that we really have. We know that they are practicing live fire exercises, shooting from armored vehicles and firearms. But certainly this really does suggest that Russia isn't heeding calls from the West to de-escalate the situation amid all of this diplomatic dialogue that is taking place this week. Of course, the United States has said that it wants Russia to hold these talks in the spirit of de-escalation, not escalation. It doesn't want there to be a gun pointed at Ukraine's head while these talks are ongoing, because this is a big week for diplomatic efforts to try to de-escalate the situation on the Ukrainian border, with reports of around 100,000 Russian troops being built up there.
Right.
Moscow hasn't acknowledged that figure. Those are figures from U.S. intelligence. And certainly Russia says it has no intention of invading Ukraine.
Right.
But these exercises certainly suggest that it isn't willing to engage in these talks without drawing down its troops.
Absolutely. Right. I was just going to come to that. Moscow is all set to table its security demands. However, they don't seem to be too optimistic going into this meet. NATO diplomats, on the other hand, say that the Western alliance is ready to negotiate with Moscow on the military drills. What can we expect on that?
Well, certainly coming out of the talks on Monday, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov, who was leading those discussions, had some mixed messages for the media when he was briefing on how those talks went. Although he said that there was no room for huge optimism, he also said that the Americans were taking the Russian proposals very seriously, but he also pointed to a significant difference of views coming out of those. Of course, there are very many demands that Russia is putting forward. Most of them are aimed at NATO, and we'll see how willing NATO is today to engage with some of those demands. They've already dismissed the call from Russia to close the door on NATO membership to Ukraine or Georgia or any other former Soviet republics. But certainly Russia wants that to be one of the top priorities for these discussions taking place today.
Absolutely. All right, Julia, thank you so much for joining us with all your inputs on that. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.